Welcome back. We are now to part 2 of our e-course, video course on forgiveness. But again, we're going to call it letting go. If I can get my head around it, even though all the blogs are titled forgiveness. So I'm curious, and if you'd like to let me know what you discovered in lesson 1 about why you don't want to forgive, I would love to hear it. So be sure and drop me a line at star@starpearcy.com. I absolutely welcome your feedback and would enjoy hearing from you. So the first part was a blog that I, again, had decided I was not ready by any stretch of the imagination to forgive this person, and I was very angry with her, and I felt justified in being so. So I did. I just held on to that anger. The second part was written about a month later, because funnily enough, when one talks shit about another person and lets them roam around rent-free in their head, there are consequences to that. And so about a month later, it happened and stuff blew up in my face. So, with no further ado, let's hear about the blowing up in my face. The title of this one is called Forgiveness Part 2, or Part 2. I don't know that I really speak French, but I gave it a shot. I can write it. Okay, Forgiveness Part 2. So here we are. What I knew was going to happen, happened. The confrontation that I knew was coming up showed up today. The person I talked about in my previous blog, Forgiveness, called me on my behavior and requested an explanation as to why I'm angry and why I'm out there talking shit about her. I knew the moment I saw her first email that I just couldn't get to the end quickly enough. I tried a shortcut by telling her that I was working at moving on and I was sorry she had experienced what she had. It didn't work. She didn't accept my answer. She wanted to understand why I was so angry with her. She kept calling on me on it. She kept telling me that she didn't believe I was really ready to move on. And so I finally expressed it. I finally said what had been bothering me. And I realized in the process she wasn't really the person I was mad at. So I tried shifting my anger to another person, and there below the anger was the pain. And below the pain was the person I was really mad at. Me. Interestingly enough, I couldn't even escape into my work today. I was given a single task to complete: find a missing file. Nothing else took priority today. My only task was to go through all of our files looking for a single piece of information. It was mindless work, which left me plenty of time to think things through. I had to sort through my feelings. I had to take out my attitudes and examine them, and I had to examine the situation from a point of view that was different than my own. And I was visibly depressed. All the while, Spirit was working. A woman came into the office and took one look at me and asked me if I was okay. When I replied that I wasn't, she gave me a hug and told me that I'm a wonderful person. Another friend who I hadn't seen for a while came in, and Shauna, my best friend, came into the office to check on me. She was the only one who knew what was going on. The others were just angels who let me know that I'm still okay. They were just there to lift me up while I sorted things out. As I worked through the files, I realized that I had held this woman responsible for situations in which I had played an active role. There were actually a few people involved, and ultimately a whole bunch of people involved. And it was my reaction to the events that created havoc in a lot of people's lives. Finally, the end of the day came. The missing file was still not found, and the boys and I came home. I went upstairs to my haven, my bathroom floor, and began putting the pieces together. I had held on to my anger for so that I wouldn't have to look at the chaos that I created. Suddenly, forgiving the person that I had blamed for the problem was an easy thing to do. The question is, can I forgive myself? As soon as that question hit me, I sobbed. I came out and wrote the first draft of this blog, raw and sad and tired. Stuff is just twisted up these days. Events are intermingling, and I'm realizing the connection between them. I wrote recently of a situation in which I did something stupid. A piece of puzzle is in that event, and destiny is playing a part. Last night, a friend was telling me a story, and he stopped in the middle of the story and related where he was to where I was 6 years ago. He noted that it wasn't our destiny to meet then, but now. Had we met 6 years ago, we would have barely taken notice of each other. I just knew that he had given me a significant piece of information, that there was something to what he said, and it was just beyond our reach. I went and wrote what he said in my journal, and then I wrote, how people meet is an interesting story. What draws them together is sometimes a complex web of events. Within that web, we live our lives, never knowing or understanding what effect or choice another will have on our story. Sometimes still, we never know why we make a choice. We just know to make it. We're seemingly drawn together by chance. We choose one place to go over another and meet someone who ultimately affects us for the rest of our life. We make a choice that is seemingly insignificant, only to find later that it made all the difference in the world. So what does that have to do with forgiving myself? Because the choices that I made 6 years ago led me to meet this woman who had a significant role in my life. The choices I made in meeting her 3 years ago and inviting her into my life led me here. And in both cases, in that time, I could make no other choice. I would certainly make a different choice now, but I was incapable of choosing anything else then. But then, interestingly enough, I found myself in a situation similar to the role she had in my story. Remember my karmic credit account? Here I am, in a situation that I'm certain may hurt someone, yet I find myself incapable of making another choice. Could she have been in the same situation with me? I walked through fire. I hurt people. I hurt myself. I changed lives forever by choosing what I knew I needed to do. At the time, I didn't know why I chose it. I only knew that I needed to. And this woman would have made any other choice than to hurt me had it been within her power to do so. But it just wasn't. Were we powerless in the face of destiny? Is there such a thing as destiny? Could we have altered our paths if we had chosen to? I wish I knew. But what I know for sure is that good or bad, right here is where I need to be. The choices that I made led me here. I regret that I caused such havoc and created such chaos back then. And I don't regret being here. Back then I was living a lie, living in powerlessness, unaware of myself and my choices. And today, I'm so much more than I was back then. My life is so much more engaging and fun and exciting now than it was then. My friends are two true friends who love me and I love them. And I couldn't truly say that back then. Maybe a bit of chaos is necessary if you're living inauthentically. Maybe what I knew was that I needed to change and there was no other way to do it. Perhaps things unfolded the way they did because they had to be that way in order for me to get here. Maybe it was just time. Can I forgive myself? Yes. Will I always regret hurting others? Most certainly. But the time for punishing myself is over. The time for anger is done. It's time to lay this down. I've paid my dues. Wow. It's always hard for me to go back and read these blogs because I do remember what incredible pain I was in. And I remember how sad I was when I realized that I was angry at her, but mostly angry at me. And I don't know your situation. I don't know where you are or who you need to forgive it or who you wrote about. And maybe truly you were an innocent victim. And I'm sorry for that. I am. But what I know is we're always given an opportunity to gain strength from the shit that happens to us. And we can choose to stay and wallow in it, or we can choose not to. And we can choose to stand firm and go, okay, yep, it sucked. It was terrible. I hated it, but it's not going to determine who I am from now on. I'm going to let this go. Because last time I talked about how letting go of shame and guilt puts you in choice, so does letting go of blame. So does accepting responsibility for the fact that you may have made choices that led to this. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. What I do know is that to continually punish yourself over and over and over for an event that happened in your life that has long since passed just doesn't make sense. And so last time we talked about how you have to forgive the other person and you need to forgive yourself as well. And so this is what the second part is about. Go back to that person. Not physically, but go back to your writing about all the reasons that you think that you shouldn't forgive that person, and they're totally valid. And now turn it around and write down all the reasons you shouldn't forgive yourself. What's the payoff? What does it do for you to hang on to this anger? And what was your role in the situation? Ask yourself these questions and get to a place where you understand that sometimes shit happens and we get hurt. And the only thing we can do is choose how we respond to it. Get out your journal and start writing. You got a lot of work to do. But believe me, as you're trudging through this shit, it's totally worth it. It really is. Because where you are today is so much better than where you were before. It really is. I'll see you next time.